Inside a black GMC Suburban sat a 24-year-old rapper who had already become immortal. His name was Christopher Wallace. The world knew him as the Notorious B.I.G, and within seconds, he would be dead. 4 bullets. One mysterious shooter. No arrests, no convictions. Almost 30 years later, the murder remains officially unsolved. But here is where the mystery begins. Why was Biggie still in Los Angeles and after multiple warnings to leave? Why did his security suddenly become weaker that night? Why were certain police officers allegedly connected to gang members? Why did witnesses disappear? Why did potential suspects die before they could testify? And the biggest question of all, was Biggie the target? Or was he sacrificed in a war far bigger than music? Tonight we uncover every strange detail, every contradiction, every theory, every suspect. From the dangerous streets of Brooklyn, to the deadly rivalry that consumed hip-hop, to the terrifying final seconds before the gunshots exploded into history. This is not just a story about rap. This is a story about power, money, fear, revenge, and a murder mystery that still haunts America.
But it was just real angry. Life after death is, it's the life after the death,
Well, let me first...
Before the fame, before the diamonds, before the East Coast, West Coast war, Christopher Wallace was just a kid growing up in Brooklyn, New York. He was born on May 21st, 1972. His mother, Valletta Wallace, was a Jamaican preschool teacher. His father left the family when Christopher was still very young. The neighborhood around him was rough. Crack cocaine flooded the streets in the 1980s. Violence became normal. Drug dealers stood on corners. Police sirens became background noise. But even as a child, Christopher stood out. Not because he was dangerous, because he was smart. Teachers said he had extraordinary intelligence. Friends said he could make entire rooms laugh. He loved words, stories, rhymes. But then another side of Brooklyn began pulling him in, the streets. And soon, Christopher Wallace started dealing drugs at just 12 years old. Think about that for a second. How does a child become trapped in a criminal world before even becoming a teenager? And was this environment secretly shaping the dark storytelling that would later make him famous? Because years later, his music would sound less like rap and more like crime documentaries. Teenage Christopher was already becoming legendary in Brooklyn neighborhoods. People gathered just to hear him freestyle. He had charisma, confidence, a voice that sounded older than his age. But there was one thing impossible to ignore: his size. Christopher was huge, towering, heavy, physically intimidating. That's where the nickname Biggie came from. Later he became Biggie Smalls, then eventually the Notorious B.I.G, a name inspired partly by the 1946 film Notorious. But there was another strange irony. Christopher was becoming famous while still living a dangerous double life. By day, rapper. By night, drug dealer. And this is important, because many investigators later believed Biggie's criminal connections may have followed him all the way into the music industry. Could people from his past have stayed around him longer than anyone realized? Could those street ties later become deadly? In the early 1990s, a young music executive heard Biggie's demo tape. That executive was Sean Combs. At the time, Combs was ambitious, aggressive, and obsessed with becoming powerful in the music business. When he heard Biggie, he immediately knew this rapper was different. Biggie could tell stories like movies. He could sound funny, terrifying, emotional, and dangerous all in the same verse. Together, they created Bad Boy Records. And suddenly, hip-hop changed forever. But success brought something else: enemies. To understand Biggie's death, you must understand the war. Not a real war with armies, but, a war with music, pride, gangs, money, and honestly, egos. On one side, you had New York, Bad Boy Records, Sean Combs, and, of course, Biggie. On the other side, there was Los Angeles, Suge Knight, Death Row Records, and Tupac Shakur. The media, man, they turned it into a spectacle. Every interview just increased tensions, and every diss track made things worse. Fans picked sides, artists picked sides, and eventually street gangs allegedly became involved. This wasn't just about music anymore. This became about survival. And here's where the mystery deepens. Was the feud real? Or maybe was it partly manufactured by record labels because controversy sold records? And if the conflict became profitable, who really benefited from all that chaos? September 7th, 1996, Las Vegas. Tupac Shakur is shot in a drive-by shooting. 6 days later, he dies. The world just explodes. Immediately, rumors spread that Biggie and Sean Combs were somehow connected. No solid evidence ever proved Biggie ordered anything, but public perception changed overnight. And suddenly, Biggie became a marked man. Some investigators later claimed Tupac's death triggered a revenge operation. Others believed corrupt police officers and gang members were secretly manipulating both murders from the shadows. But the scariest possibility? That both Tupac and Biggie were trapped inside a machine they could no longer control. After Tupac's death, Biggie reportedly became paranoid. Friends later described him as uneasy. He knew people blamed him. He knew Los Angeles had become dangerous. And yet, in early 1997, he still traveled to California. Why? That question still bothers investigators. Why would one of the most famous rappers alive willingly return to enemy territory after Tupac's murder? Was he overconfident? Did he trust the wrong people? Or did someone convince him he would be protected? March of 1997. Biggie travels to Los Angeles to promote his upcoming album, Life After Death. The title alone now feels chilling. Life After Death. Almost prophetic, honestly. On March 8th, Biggie attends a party hosted by Vibe magazine and Quest Records at the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles. Celebrities filled the building. Music blasted through speakers. Champagne flowed everywhere. But outside, tension lingered. The LAPD shut the party down because the crowd had become too large. And this is where the timeline becomes incredibly important, because after the party ended, everything changed. Biggie entered a dark GMC Suburban. Sean Combs traveled separately. Security vehicles surrounded them, at least initially. Then traffic lights stopped the convoy, cars separated. Suddenly, Biggie's vehicle became exposed. A dark Chevrolet Impala pulled beside the Suburban. Witnesses described the driver as a black male wearing a blue suit and bow tie. Then, gunshots. 4 shots tore into the vehicle. Chaos erupted instantly. People screamed, cars accelerated, security guards panicked, Biggie slumped over. Blood poured across the seats. At first, some believed he survived, but the wounds were catastrophic. He was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. At 1:15 a.m., Christopher Wallace was pronounced dead. He was only 24 years old. And the mystery had just begun. Please like, share, and subscribe to Fact or Belief for more. Years later, Biggie's autopsy report was finally released publicly. The details were horrifying. 4 bullets hit him. 3 were survivable. 1 was fatal. The final bullet entered through his right hip and tore through vital organs including the liver, heart, colon, and lung. No drugs, no alcohol. Biggie was sober when he died. Which raises another haunting question. Did he sense danger that night? Was he trying to stay alert? Normally, the murder of a global superstar would trigger an unstoppable investigation. But Biggie's case became chaos. Witness statements conflicted, evidence disappeared, leads stalled. And then something deeply disturbing emerged. Claims of LAPD corruption. Retired detective Russell Poole became one of the most controversial figures connected to the case. Poole believed corrupt police officers tied to death row records may have been involved. According to theories later explored in books and documentaries, gang members connected to death row may have coordinated the hit. But here's the strange part. Certain officers allegedly interfered with investigations. Some reports claimed evidence was ignored. Others claimed witnesses became afraid to talk. Could the murder investigation itself have been compromised from the beginning? One name appears repeatedly in discussions about Biggie's murder: Wardell Pucci Faust, a mob Peru Bloods gang member allegedly connected to Suge Knight. Former detective Greg Kading later claimed Faust was the shooter. But there's a problem. Faust himself was murdered in 2003, shot dead before any trial, before any full public testimony, before any closure. Coincidence or convenient silence? Because this pattern appears constantly in famous unsolved cases. Potential witnesses die, informants vanish, evidence disappears, and the truth becomes harder to reach.
One major theory claims Suge Knight ordered Biggie's murder as revenge for Tupac. Former detective Greg Kading publicly supported this theory. According to Kading, gang members loyal to death row carried out the shooting. But no court ever proved this. No criminal conviction ever happened, and critics argue the evidence remains circumstantial. Still, the theory refuses to disappear. Why? Because the timeline feels terrifyingly symmetrical. Tupac dies. 6 months later, Biggie dies. Both killed in drive-by shootings. Both murders unsolved. Both connected to the same rap war. Could that really be coincidence?
In recent years, online theories involving Sean Combs exploded across social media and documentaries. Some former associates alleged suspicious behavior before Biggie's death. Others suggested Biggie's murder financially benefited multiple people. But it's important to separate allegations from proven facts. There is no official evidence proving Combs ordered Biggie's death. No criminal charge exists. Still, the theories persist, especially after recent legal controversies surrounding Combs brought renewed public attention to old mysteries. And that leads to another disturbing question. Could the music industry know more than it has ever admitted publicly? Now let's examine the details conspiracy researchers obsess over. Why did Biggie cancel his London trip? Reports suggest he originally planned to leave Los Angeles sooner. Why stay? Who convinced him? Why was security inconsistent? Some accounts suggest portions of the convoy became separated unusually easily. Was it bad luck or setup? Why was the shooter never caught despite witnesses? This was not an isolated alley. Multiple people saw the vehicle, yet no arrest. Why did the case repeatedly stall? Investigators themselves accused parts of law enforcement of corruption. Why do both Tupac and Biggie's murders remain unsolved? Two of the biggest celebrity killings in American history. No convictions, no final answers. How is that possible? Over the years, internet investigators searched through leaked files, FBI discussions, archived reports, and conspiracy forums hoping to uncover hidden information. Public FBI records confirmed federal interest in the murder investigation. Online conspiracy communities later connected the case to broader allegations involving police corruption, entertainment industry power structures, and gang influence. However, it's important to distinguish verified evidence from speculation. Despite years of online claims, no verified WikiLeaks document has conclusively solved Biggie's murder. Still, that hasn't stopped millions of people from believing there's a cover-up. And maybe the reason is simple. Too many things feel unresolved. Too many coincidences stacked together. Too many powerful names appear around the case. Thousands mourned Biggie after his death. Fans filled the streets. Hip-hop artists cried publicly. New York felt wounded because, Biggie wasn't just a rapper anymore. He had become a symbol. And after his murder, something changed in hip-hop forever. The genre became darker, more paranoid, more commercial. Many fans believe the deaths of Tupac and Biggie ended hip-hop's golden era, and maybe they're right. What if the answer is simpler than people think? What if multiple people knew the murder would happen, but nobody stopped it? Because fear can silence entire industries, and power protects itself. That possibility terrifies people more than any conspiracy theory, not because it sounds impossible, because honestly, it sounds believable. Almost 30 years later, the red traffic light where Biggie stopped has become part of music history. One moment separated life from death, one decision, one car, one shooter, and then nothing. No arrest, no final truth. Only theories, only suspicions, only questions. Maybe the truth is buried in sealed files. Maybe witnesses are still alive. Maybe somebody powerful knows exactly what happened. Or maybe the murder of the Notorious B.I.G. will remain one of America's greatest unsolved mysteries forever. And perhaps the scariest part is this: the closer investigators came to answers, the darker the story became. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe for more.